This episode of Marijuana Today Daily is brought to you by our friends over at ease.com, California's top one-stop website for legal marijuana delivery, as well as an option for the same for folks living in the Portland, Oregon area. Good morning, Marijuana Nation. It's Wednesday, August 14th, 2019, and you're tuned in to episode 776 of Marijuana Today Daily. I'm your host, Shay Gunther, and I'll be walking you through today's marijuana news and headlines. As always, we have a full and busy day of cannabis news in our hands, so let's jump right into it. We start the day off in a state not often touched on here in the headlines, and that's Nebraska, where the legalization of industrial hemp appears to be causing some havoc with the state's ability to prosecute people for marijuana possession. It's the same story we're seeing in states like Florida and Georgia, where police are now required to prove in court that the marijuana seized in possession cases has enough THC to be counted as the kind of marijuana you get in trouble for. Industrial hemp is defined as any kind of marijuana with less than 0.3% THC and is now fully legal nationwide, thanks to last year's Farm Bill. Regular listeners know there are still plenty of things to be worked out and kinks in the system to fix, but by law, it's perfectly legal to have a big pile of marijuana, just as long as it has less than 0.3% THC. In Nebraska, that situation moved a number of prosecutors to write an editorial this past weekend, decrying the new complications involved with prosecuting marijuana crimes. The biggest issue for them is the fact that there are no in-state labs capable of distinguishing between hemp and THC, and that out-of-state lab tests are cost prohibitive. On Monday, Nebraska Governor Pete Ricketts was asked if marijuana was now legal in his state, to which he answered no, along with a pledge that they were working on a plan to figure out how to better test. Marijuana Business Daily's chart of the week grabs our second top story today, and it's a good one, as a chart generally needs to be to grab a top 3 headline. This one nicely shows the growth rate and relative size of different states' medical marijuana patient populations. 10 states in all are shown, with each compared against one another in terms of their average daily patient increase and the percentage of medical marijuana patients that make up their total population. To my eye, the story here is clearly Oklahoma, which is adding 640 registered medical marijuana patients per day, and where an amazing 4.1% of all residents are medical marijuana patients. Those are both remarkable numbers, made even more so by the fact that it was barely over a year ago that residents approved a medical marijuana ballot measure. Oklahoma's system is characterized by almost no barriers to entry, both for businesses and patients, which is a great model to have in our mix to look at, study, and compare. Give this one a read today. Our final top story today brings us out to Massachusetts, which is in the process of considering plans to allow for the delivery of legal marijuana, as well as cannabis consumption cafes, a long-running storyline here on The Daily. Public hearings were held today in Boston and Springfield, and the state is accepting comments from the public through tomorrow. Following the closing of the public comment period, the Massachusetts Cannabis Control Commission will meet to consider submitted comments and to cast final votes on the program. In addition to the new delivery and cafe programs, the commission is considering a number of other changes, including the elimination of annual registration fees for medical marijuana patients and an increase in fees paid by commercial cultivators. The Worcester Telegram has more on this. Definitely a story you need to have a good handle on if you do business in Massachusetts. Those are our top stories for today. It's time for Marijuana Today Daily Headlines Blitz. Before we blitz out on headlines, let's quickly thank our sponsor, ease.com, California's top one-stop website for legal marijuana delivery, as well as an option for the same for folks living in the Portland, Oregon area. Ease is helping to raise awareness right now of a proposed bill in California that would eliminate excise tax on donated medical marijuana, something that's really important if you value nonprofit organizations that help medical cannabis patients of lower means get the medical marijuana that helps them find relief from whatever is troubling them. California Senate Bill 34 would carve out protections for nonprofits like that from having to pay excise tax on the cannabis they take in as donations from cultivators to pass on for free to lower income patients. You can sign a change.org petition asking California lawmakers to enact this important legislation, which you can find over at ease.com/home, where Ease has all kinds of useful editorial content, including a detailed story on this. One more time, time, that's ease.com/home with ease spelled EAZE. Big thanks to everyone at Ease for supporting today's show and for helping bring awareness to California's Senate Bill 34. All right, time for the Blitz. Yesterday in Alabama, the state's Medical Marijuana Commission met for the first time to consider the case for legalizing medical marijuana. The 15-member panel was created by law last year after a bill to set up a legal medical marijuana program was changed instead to form a committee to more formally study the concept ahead of making recommendations for the 2020 legislative session. The Alabama Medical Cannabis Commission has until December 1st to complete their work. Multi-state cannabis operator Acreage Holdings just reported its financial results for their latest fiscal quarter. The company, which was bought earlier this year in a delayed acquisition by Canadian giant Canopy Growth, reported second quarter revenues of $17.7 million, a jump of 501% over the same period last year, a net loss of $33.9 million, and an adjusted EBITDA loss of $12 million. As with any story with reported financial results, it's always worth clicking over to the numbers and details. Another Canadian company with reported results, as Tilray also just issued its latest quarterly financial results with $45.9 million revenue for the second quarter, up nearly 400% from the same period last year. Tilray saw net losses for the quarter of just over $35 million, up from the same period's loss last year of $12.8. Another good one to read in full. And California-based cannabis company MedMen also released some financial results, as that multi-state operator saw revenues in the latest quarter of $61 million. The company highlighted in its results a financing agreement for $250 million it secured from Gotham Green Partners, as well as an additional $30 million in financing from Gotham Green and Wicklow Capital. AJ Harrington over at High Times picked up on a good story out of Pennsylvania, where a judge ruled that police do not have probable cause to search a car after an officer smells marijuana. In the case just decided, police determined that the passenger in the car was a registered medical marijuana patient and then went ahead and searched the car anyway after claiming to have smelled marijuana. They found an illegal handgun under the seat and charged the passenger with a crime. In the ruling issued earlier this month, Lehigh County Judge Maria Dantos wrote, quote, "The smell of marijuana is no longer per se indicative of a crime, throwing out the illegally obtained evidence." I think AJ makes a good point here in that the case especially demonstrates that police don't really have a good understanding of how cannabis law is changing. The arresting officer here testified that she thought that medical marijuana doesn't have a smell. Pennsylvania did initially restrict medical cannabis users to non-flower form, but that changed to allow for flower last August. Marijuana Business Daily is self-reporting that it was named to the list of the 5,000 fastest-growing private companies in the U.S. by Inc. magazine, landing at number 1,421. This is the fourth year in a row that Marijuana Business Daily has made the list, landing at number 837 last year, 528 the year before that, and 302 in its first year on the list. And finally for today, New Jersey State Senate President Stephen Sweeney spoke yesterday with the editorial board of the Asbury Park Press newspaper and said that it was possible that New Jersey would limit legal marijuana edibles under an adult use legalization scheme in order to gain support from lawmakers currently on the fence. Sweeney said the issue was still being worked on, referring to a shift towards limiting edibles by saying, quote, "We're looking at possibly addressing that in a different piece of legislation," unquote. Those are the headlines and news for the day. I'll be back with you again tomorrow morning with another information-packed episode of Marijuana Today Daily. But in the meantime, if you have any stories to share or feedback to give, zip us an email to headlines@mjtodaydaily.com. And while you're clicking around the interwebs, swing over to our Twitter account at mjtodaydaily and visit our website at mjtodaydaily.com to find links to all the news we cover. Thanks to our sponsor, Ease, and to all of our awesome Patreon listeners for the support that makes this show possible. To join the illustrious ranks of the Patreon listeners yourself, swing over to our website at mjtodaydaily.com and click on that big blue button at the top of the page that says Become a Patron. I'm your host, Shay Gunther. Thanks for tuning in and starting your day with marijuana today.
One take, Shay. One take.